We're going to take this equation business one step further and now look at some multi-step equations, which are, as you would probably assume, steps that, rather equations that require multiple steps. And sometimes it doesn't fall into a specific number, but you just kind of do what you have to do to get the job done. One tip that I would like to add here is that you need to get all like terms on the same side of the equal sign and combine early if you can. Always look at the equation first and see if there's anything that you can just combine right off the bat, because a lot of times there will be terms that you can just combine and make it a lot easier from the get-go. Okay, so we're going to start with 6 equals 1 minus 2n plus 5. Okay, now if you look, right off the bat I notice that I have a 1 and a 5 that I can go ahead and combine right here. So really this is the same thing as the 1 plus 5 gives me a 6 minus 2n. Okay, and now I want to do the same thing that I've been doing with figuring out what's happening to n and then doing the opposite of that. And we think about that as a way of stripping off all this other garbage that's on here. We have a 6 constant, we have a -2 coefficient on the n, and we're looking to strip all that off by doing the opposite of what's already there. So the opposite of having a positive 6 here, and again I want to isolate this n, so we're going to subtract 6. That's the opposite of that. And so 6 minus 6 is 0, 6 minus 6 is 0, and I'm just left with a -2n. And now if I want to divide this -2 out of there, I just divide by -2 on both sides. 0 over -2 is 0. And over here these are going to cancel. This -2 and that -2 are going to cancel because this is a multiplication and they are opposite operations. So I'm left with n, and there's my answer. -20 equals -4x minus 6x. Well, if you look here, I have like terms, both of those, so I can go ahead and combine them. If I have -4 and -6, I'm going to have a -10. And this is very easy. Now x is being multiplied by -10, so I just need to divide by -10, and it goes away. And so on the left-hand side, -20 divided by -10 is a +2, and I'm just left with x, and there is my solution. Here, this is, and there's going to be multiple ways that you can do this, but I'm just going to tell you the way that I would do it because it's kind of the easiest thing to do. So here, you can distribute this -4, but it's not going to be in your best interest because if you look, of course, that's multiplication. But if I divide by this -4, this entire side divide by -4, it will actually do me a lot of good because the 12 over here is also divisible by -4. I can take 12 over -4 and I'm going to get a nice integer out of it. So 12 divided by -4 is -3. And over here, this -4 and that -4 are going to cancel. So I'm left with -6x minus 3. And now I can just go through and add the 3, because if I look at what's happening to the x, first it's being multiplied by -6 and then subtracted by 3. So I'm going to add 3 first. And so over here, -3 plus 3 gives me 0. These go away, and I'm just left with that. And then, of course, I'm going to divide by -6, and I'm kind of running out of room here, but that's okay. We can go this way. And so the 0 over -6 gives me 0. The -6 divided by -6 goes away, and there is my answer. Here we have another scenario where we have a negative in front of a parentheses where we have multiple terms in the parentheses. And like I said before, this is kind of like distributing a negative sign. Okay, so I'm really distributing that negative sign there and there. And so I'm not doing anything to the left, but I'm really just changing all of these signs over here. Okay, or you could look at this as saying, well, this is a -1 and I just divide by the -1. You'll get the same answer either way. And so now I look at this and I need to add 4 there and there. Okay, so -8 minus 4 gives me a -4, and I have a -x here, but these two go away as I wanted them to. And now if you look, I have -x, and I really need to just divide by a -1, which is kind of what I would have done up here. Probably would have saved myself a step, but either way you're going to get the same answer. Okay, and so -4 divided by -1 is a +4, and -x divided by -1 is +x. And you can also just even think about it where you're like, oh, well, if -x is -4, then +x is +4. Okay, a couple more examples. Here, this is a scenario where I am going to recommend distributing the -2 here rather than just trying to divide it out. And that's because if I was to divide this entire side by -2, I would have to divide this 5n and this 34 by -2. Now the 34 is not a problem because I would just get a 17 out of that. 34 divided by 2 is 17. But the 5 is a problem, and if I'm trying to avoid fractions, then I don't really need to divide by -2 right now. I might be able to distribute and get something else out of it when I go through and try to combine terms then. So I'm not touching the left-hand side. And here when I distribute this -2, I get a -2 and a +14n. Okay, and now I just need to go through and combine terms. Notice that I have n's on both sides. So the first thing I want to try to do is get all the n's together. If I subtract 14n, that's going to make my n negative. But if I subtract 5n, I'll get a positive n over here. There's no benefit to that other than just if you want to make sure that you get a positive number out of it. But either way, you'll get the same thing. The n's go away. I'm just left with 34. I haven't touched the -2 yet, and 14 minus 5 is 9n. And now I can add 2 and get 36, and some of you may already see where this is going. And now I just need to divide by 9. Of course, those go away. 36 over 9 is 4, and over here we just have n. Okay. This is another scenario where you could distribute, or you could just divide everything out by 2. For the sake of the example here, since we're just learning to distribute, I'm just going to distribute. And so 2 times 4x is an 8x. 2 times -3 is -6. I'm bringing down that -8, and then 4 plus 2x comes down. Now here I have some like terms there and there. I can go ahead and combine those. No need in waiting or doing them separately. So that's going to give me a -14. And then over here I'm not doing anything yet. So now I need to combine the x's, and I have x's on both sides. If I subtract 2x, that'll leave me with a positive x over here. And so 8x minus 2x gives me a 6x. And I still have the -14, and then over here I have a 4. And now, as you can probably guess, I need to add 14, and so these are going to go away right there, and I'm going to be left with 6x equals 18. Okay, and now I need to divide by 6, which means those will go away, and I'm left finally with x equals 3. 18 over 6 gives me a 3. That was a longer one. And really to appreciate this, you have to do some longer examples to appreciate the system that goes into solving these correctly each time. Here I have a wholly big old mess. And so in order to really get my mind around this, I'm just going to take this very, very systematically. And I'm not going to try to jump to any conclusions. I'm just going to do the distribution and see what happens. That becomes a -5 and a positive 25x. This one becomes a -40x and a -10. And I'm not doing anything over here yet. Actually, scratch that. What can I do on the right hand side? I can combine these like terms, because I have an x and an x. And if I have minus 4 and minus 8, I'm just going to have minus 12. And so now I need to combine terms. So I have this 25 and this negative 40. And I also have, well, I'll do it one at a time. How about that? So negative 5, I'm doing a 25 minus 40, which is going to give me a negative 15x. And I still have this minus 10. And all of that still equals negative 12x. Now I can go through and combine those two and get a minus 15 minus 15x. So notice that these two, the minus 5 and the minus 10, came together to give me this minus 15. And that negative 15x is still the negative 15x. And I have not touched the right at all. And so now I need to get this 15, this negative 15x, over there, because I have x's on both sides, and it would do me no good to bring this 12x over to the left, because then I'm going to have everything over here, and I'm just going to have to move the constant back over to the right. So make your choices based on what makes life easiest for you. Otherwise, you're just setting yourself up for a lot of errors. So negative 12 minus 15. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. I'm adding 15. Don't forget to do opposite operations. So I'm adding 15 to both sides. And so negative 12 plus 15 gives me a positive 3x. And then when I divide by the 3 here, I see that these go away, and I see that x equals negative 5.